We are joined now by Mike Ferrin. He is part of the MLB Network as well as Sirius XM College Sports. Mike, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Mike, what's up, bud? Long time no talk, man. Where you been all my life?
I know, man. I've been to town the last three College World Series, and you never come to see me. I mean, I almost didn't do this interview this morning because I felt like you were just using me now because you never come to hang out.
Well, 2 of the last 3 years, they actually had me working. But now that once I got blackballed, then I can't do the broadcast anymore for Westwood One. So, we'll come hang out. We've got a booth down there now. But I've missed you, man. I never know whether to talk old school, like your neighborhood, the Wire, Baltimore, then the new life of the Diamondbacks and Major League Baseball. Now college. Now I'm back to Major League Baseball. I don't know what I want to talk to you about. Where do you want to start?
I'm ready with anything. I mean, I love that you played the Dave Neal call of Cam Cantarella's catch yesterday, which is going to go down as one of the all-time greats at every level. But man, you want to talk MLB? You want to talk college? I'm ready to go.
All right, let's start there because I was joking. I was watching. My little guy was playing basketball, and I'm watching Florida and Clemson on television. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of known for being a little ridiculous sometimes when it comes to technology, but I was messing with my phone because I couldn't get it to rotate. I felt like something was wrong with the view on my phone, so I turned it a couple times, and I went to see if the little settings thing would allow me to turn. Have you ever been a part of a broadcast where you only have one angle or the cameras were doing what they were doing during the broadcast yesterday? What kind of poise do you think that would take?
It takes a lot. I have been through some similar situations, but generally it's been so like on site for the announcers, it doesn't matter quite as much, right? Because then you just kind of shift into radio announcer mode to some degree. And so like you've got a fallback there because so many games are still done remotely. That's where it really becomes an issue because then you can't track the ball flight. So I've had that happen. I remember once in 2021, we were doing a game remotely. It was a Diamondbacks Giants game and the entire program feed went out. And so like you're at the mercy of your TV monitors. If you're calling it remotely, we didn't have any monitors. So fortunately there is some better data in Major League parks that happens in real time. And they were able to get some sort of a feed up. We were doing the game from Chase Field, even though the team wasn't there. We were actually calling the game off the video board in center field for a while. So, yeah, it happens. It's not ideal, but if you're on site, if your announcer is on site, it's not a problem.
It seemed like Burke was a pro's pro, too, but you could tell he was getting pretty frustrated. At what part did you feel like that game was getting out of control from being a civil standpoint?
I mean, I think once the umpires got involved, that was really like, I really think that one of
the issue at second base or like which one started it, do you think?
I think the issue at first base and in ejecting Jack Crichton in the second inning.
Yeah.
I mean, all of a sudden listen, we had warnings the day before in Tallahassee, right? For celebrations and a little bit of chirping. Like, first and foremost, you can't tell players to play with emotion and then penalize them for playing with emotion. And you have to remember that we as the grown-ups are way worse at compartmentalizing that stuff than the players and the kids are. And so like that's a big issue that I think the NCAA has made a critical mistake in trying to get umpires to enforce something that didn't need to be enforced, right? Let them chirp. If there's an issue, like if guys are getting ready to come to blows, fine, get involved. That's when you can start issuing warnings. That's when you start issuing ejections. You penalize people. You don't have to make some sort of proactive decision. And I think it really, I was really going to be ticked off if Alden Mathis had been tossed yesterday for Clemson, because that's what it felt like, because he had spiked the bat.
Yeah.
Like, that's a huge moment, right? Like, you're playing this unbelievably intense game. Your season's on the line. I'm still not quite sure why they ran Jack Leggett.
Because I think they wanted their pound of flesh. They had to get somebody
No, I don't think. I really don't think that it's that conspiratorial on the umpire's part. I just think that I think that what happens is that they worry about the emotions of the situation getting too big for everybody involved, and they're trying to stop a fight that's not going to happen.
That's kind of what I'm saying, though, right? It's like that was like the sixth thing that could happen. You meet for a while, and I felt like, well, we have to get control of this somehow. And I think Leggett was the easy target at the time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but the whole thing was ridiculous, and it's not the first time it's happened. It's something that continues to go on. I mean, listen, it's happened to Clemson the last 2 years. Like Cam Canarella got run in a regional game for showing emotion, right? And then he got suspended in their biggest game of the year. Like that whole thing, all of that is terrible. Like that's a terrible look for the sport. And like also kind of, Billy Van Rapport, who's the crew chief there, terrific umpire. He's in Omaha every year. But like Billy did not get control of that situation, right? Like you need to have a little bit more feel. You need to let that emotion, the energy, that stuff is part of what makes these events special. And it's part of what makes players rise to the occasion. And so you can't try to litigate that. And I think that's been a big, like forcing the umpires to be on the lookout for celebrations that they feel like could cross a line is something that's been terrible. I mean, it's akin to stationing somebody at every crosswalk searching for jaywalking.
I mean, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong here. Obviously, you consume way more college baseball than, well, mostly anyone that I know. But it is like this wasn't a problem, right? There wasn't like a rash of brawls across the sport. This is just a thing they decided to do because they're like, oh, maybe someday this could be a problem.
I think that's it. I think it's that they were worried about people's feelings getting hurt. And, it came about after we saw teams using props on the field. I mean, that's really when it started, going back to the 22 season when, they had the Hokie Hammer at Virginia Tech, and they had the Daddy Code at Tennessee, and they had all these celebration things, right? Like all this stuff is where it started. And then all of a sudden we get to the tournament, you couldn't use it outside the dugout, right? And then it was, well, these guys are getting too emotional. The bat flips, the bat spikes. James Tibbs had he did basically the mic drop on his third home run the other day. That was awesome. But like those kind of things all of a sudden became something, and it's like, it's well-intentioned, right? Like, I don't want to make it sound like this is the fun police. Like, they're trying to ensure that it's a good environment for everybody involved. They're just misreading the situation.
When you're taking a look at, and I had to explain this on when the regional pairings came out, and I was saying locally, I'm like, listen, I don't think Florida has any business being a 3 seed, let alone in the field. But I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound weird. I said, they're fully capable of getting to Omaha, let alone winning this regional. It's hard to explain if you don't watch a ton of college baseball. But my point is that I think they were almost getting healthy in the right spots. Now they had the ACL injury in the conference finals, but it just seems like a team that when they get going, and we know about Kevin, like how he manages or coaches, I should say, college, that this team is very capable. What's your level of surprise that they're in Omaha?
I mean, not at all. I mean, I don't hold the same opinion that you did on them being a regional team either. I mean, I think they absolutely were a regional caliber team. Listen, I know they went 13-17 in league, but we're also in an era where not everybody's league schedule is the same. Mm-hmm. And they played the top 5 teams in the country in conference, and nobody else did that. It was the top 5, top 6. And they went 9-9 in those games. So like they basically handled the best teams fine. They had issues in midweeks this year. That's why their record was down. But they still played a difficult schedule and were a really talented team. And I think that's what you saw showed up. I mean, you're right. Like Sully's incredible. In the last 14 men's college World Series, Florida is going to be a part of it 9 times.
Yeah.
Like that's ridiculous, right? Like he's been there 17 years. They've been to Omaha more times than they haven't in that run. Like they are one of the top programs in the country. They're loaded with talent. I was going over some notes last night for the games that I'm doing next week on the radio, and I was like marveling. Again, it's like one of those things like, but you don't fully appreciate until you start diving in. They were unbelievably young on the mound this year. And sometimes it takes a while for those players to really get it together. And I think you saw it with some of the fits and starts Liam Peterson had.
Coppola was the same way.
Early.
He's getting it going now.
Yeah. So and I think McNeely, Luke McNeely essentially finishing that out. Like, that's a freshman that struggled at times. So I think that's part of where they were, but that's a super talented team. I'm actually really surprised that their offense wasn't better this year. That's the thing that really shocks me more than anything is, Colby Shelton had big power numbers, but, only hit, 258 or something like that. That's surprising because that guy's a really good offensive player. The bottom of their lineup wasn't real strong. So, they had issues overall, but it's certainly not a lack of talent. Sully is clearly one of the best, if not the best recruiter in the country.
We're talking with Mike Ferrin of MLB Network and Sirius XM. Mike, is there a team? I know we've got 7 of our 8 so far. We'll get the last one, last ticket punch tonight. Is there a team so far that's either qualified or Georgia or NC State that you look at as, when people get to Omaha, we like to find the stories. Who's the most interesting story of the teams that are left?
Ooh, the most interesting story. I think they all have pretty good storylines. I think I did a lot of ACC games for ESPN this year, so I've seen that conference a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think North Carolina is really underappreciated nationally. Now they've gotten more attention because of the way the regional and the super regional have gone, right? The Chapel Thrill, as Mike Monaco called it. I think
my favorite
team. Yeah, it's great. There's a great line, and man, it was electric there, right? So I think that's a team that is really interesting. I think Florida State being back, this is the first time that Florida State's ever gone to Omaha without Mike Martin involved somehow, either a player, an assistant, or as the head coach. And obviously 11 passed in February, but Link Jarrett getting back there in his second year, the talent they have, I think that's compelling. I think Tennessee is the number 1 team is compelling, right? It'll be repeated over and over again, this week and next. The last time the number 1 overall seed won the Men's College World Series was 1999, the first year of the super regional format. So can they do it? I think that's a really compelling storyline as well. And then I think one of the big ones is going to be that it's going to be an all ACC and SEC tournament. And I think there'll be a lot of bad takes around that, but I think you also will see a really high quality of baseball because those 2 conferences were so good this year.
You brought them up unsolicited, so that gives me the green light to talk about them. But as you know, I've been around the Dustin Ackleys and the Harveys and the Wootens and the Andrew Millers and fudge. I go all the way back to Chris Iannetta. But what, in your opinion, what can make this team different than, let's say, the one that Rodon shut down here in Omaha after them owning them in the regular season? What makes, in your opinion, this Carolina team have a chance to be different?
Their bullpen is terrific, and it's not just one guy. Matty Matthias, Dalton Pence, Matt Poston, Ben Peterson are probably as quality a quartet of pitchers as you're going to find in the tournament, and they've been unbelievably reliable.
Pence has been
North Carolina.
Sick.
So I think, Pence has had a great postseason. But he's been unreal. But for most of the year, Matthias was their biggest and best arm, right? So I think that's part of it. They are really good defensively. Vance Honeycutt's going to cover a ton of ground in center field. He may strike out in all but one plate appearance, but that one plate appearance, if the game's on the line, he seems to come through in those. They are deeper offensively, I think, than people realize. They can get after you a bunch of different ways. Casey Cook has had a terrific season adding power. He's their best pure hitter. Parks Harbor is like your classic SEC run producer. That's basically what he was at Georgia before he transferred to North Carolina. I think Anthony D'Onofrio is a sneaky guy in right field. He has more power than people realize. Really good athlete. He'd play center field on probably any other team in the country. I just think they're really deep. And I think they're really good, both offensively in terms of their approach, and that they're really, really good in the bullpen. And so that's why I think this is a different North Carolina team.
All right, Mike, let's switch gears while we have you for the last few minutes here to Major League Baseball. I know,
by the way, before you get started, I apologize. No disrespect to Zach Gallen either. I did that intentionally when I was listening my Tar Heels for you.
I thought you were gonna give me a Daniel Bard at some point. Like, toss him out there. Let's go.
The only
how far back were we gonna go?
Listen, so this is crazy. This is crazy, Mike. But one of the few pictures that I've taken, Matt Harvey was at the CWS a handful of years ago, and I put my headsets down, and I took a picture with him, and he wasn't. I mean, he was getting ready to really be blackballed in the league, in Major League Baseball. But I was like, you know what? That Carolina gear looks great. That's the Dark Knight. I'm going to get a picture. Hold this segment. I had to do it, Mike. I had to do it.
That's great. I love that. That's fantastic.
Speaking of DB's favorite teams, he's always complaining about the Dodgers, but they're
you jerk.
I mean, I'm not
gonna know it.
I'm not wrong. But they're just casually 8 games ahead in their division, just 41-26, not a big deal.
15 years of friendship with him, and the only thing that I ever hear about is how bad the Dodgers are.
Yeah, and they're in first place.
Awful to make the playoffs every year.
Every time. So, that's fun to hear.
Oh, Lord.
Is there any part of you, just trying to get ahead of this for DB, is there any part of you that thinks there is either a flaw or an underachieving that they've done so far this year? Or
sure.
Okay, let's hear the argument.
Yeah,
so
I mean, the back half of their lineup hasn't been very good. Like the bottom third in particular has been a struggle, and it's a little bit surprising, I think. I mean, some of it is like understandable, right? Like Jason Hayward's missed a ton of time. Gavin Lux missed all of last season, right? Like there's going to be some adjustments with it. So maybe those solutions come internally, but they're not as deep a lineup as they have been in the past. And Teoscar Hernandez had a great series in New York, but he's going to run hot and cold because he's a super aggressive hitter, right? He'll go outside the strike zone a lot. And so when you get him on these heaters, it's great. And it can last for a month. But you've got to, that's somebody that tends to get exposed in postseason series, right? Because of the chase. So I think there's probably some help that needs to come there. They're going to get healthier on the mound here coming up. I'm not really worried about their pitching overall. And the top of the lineup is great. I mean, you've got Hall of Famers in the first 3 spots, no doubt Hall of Famers, and a guy who's trending that way who doesn't get talked about enough in their catcher, Will Smith. And so, like lineup-wise, I think the top of it's really good. I think the back half needs to be addressed. I think like every team, they'll go out and add bullpen help at the deadline. But yeah, I think that to me is Dodger team. The last half of the lineup is super pitchable, especially with Max Muncy out.
I want to go to the East just for a second, and this is in spite of the month that Judge has had, or since May 1. I saw some incredible numbers from him with, I don't know, it's 19 home runs, a 1070 OPS. Like Judge has been unbelievable. But let me go down just a bit to the Blue Jays, because that's a team that I had in the playoffs. They're obviously, I think they've got a couple in a row here. On paper, they look like they should be significantly better, but you keep talking bullpen. What's happened with their rotation when those guys take the bump on the back half? Is it just simply baseball being baseball?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is weird, right? So, like, some of it's injury related in their bullpen. Jordan Romano hasn't been right all year. Eric Swanson, who's their best setup guy, got sent to the minors because he was struggling. Eric Swanson has not had a normal year. I don't know if you know the story, but in spring training, his 4-year-old son was hit by a car and was in critical condition for like a week and a half. And so, like, he has not had a normal year at all, right? Like, this poor guy has had to deal with the emotional strain that comes from that, and then rushing to get ready for a season and all of that. So my guess is that Swanson, after a reset, gets back to being okay on the mound. I think probably he just needs, like, the breather probably is going to help him some. At least I hope so, because, man, that guy's been through a lot. And then, the rotation, I mean, Gossman started to pitch significantly better. Barrios, the results have been better than what his peripherals have shown, but he's a quality pitcher. Bassett's starting to tune it up. So the issues are offense, which was an issue a year ago. and they didn't really address. You know, they replaced Brandon Belt
like a left-handed stick, or like, what do you mean?
No, I just mean that they didn't address it at all. Like
Okay.
Brandon Belt and Matt Chapman both left via free agency, and the replacements were Isaiah Canapalepo, can't hit, and Justin Turner, who hasn't, maybe because he's 40. You know, so like I mean, you know, like Justin Turner's been a great hitter in his career and was very good for the Red Sox last year too. But like Justin Turner, like at some point you're going to age out, right? Father Time is undefeated. So I just think that they've done a terrible job of addressing their offensive needs. They went heavy defense a year ago, which I understood because their outfield defense in particular was pretty putrid. But they have not done anything to get better offensively. Now, Vlad's on a heater, and that helps. Bichette's going to be fine. You know, they've made some changes on their infield now, letting Kevin Biggio go. But they really need to find some offense if they're going to get over the top. And right now, they're you know, they look like on the field the team that they are record-wise, which is a mediocre team that's, a game under 500.
Mike, before we let you go here, got to ask you about the Kansas City Royals. They obviously have gotten off to a great start this year. Everybody, they're kind of one of those teams that are like, oh, they got some young talent. Is this on time, ahead of schedule, kind of what you thought they'd be?
I'm ready to just kind of call them good.
They might just be good.
Yeah, I think they might be good. I mean, I think that's the right. No, I think that's right. I mean, like one of the things we said the first week of the season on our show that was, I wonder if we underestimated the additions of Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo and what it meant to just have two competent starting pitchers in that rotation behind Cole Reagans and you know what you were hoping for is a bounce back from Brady Singer. I know Wacha's out now, but you know, like when we made off-season predictions, like we whiffed on that because we didn't take that into account. They have the monster in the middle of the lineup in Bobby Witt Jr. Now, there's been a little less consistency around him offensively, and that's something that I think they probably still need to address. And obviously, I think every Royals fan is hoping that they'll add a couple bullpen arms, and I've heard that they're being fairly aggressive on that. But yeah, I think they're good. I think there are some things I feel like in both their performance and in kind of their underlying data that shows that they are, like, I have more faith in them right now than I do in Cleveland. Even though Cleveland's run off to this great start, I think their offense comes back to the pack. I think they are really thin in the rotation.
Me too.
And have weathered the storm fairly well so far. But I think Kansas City's got staying power in that division, and you know that front office is going to be aggressive if they have a chance to win.
Well, once a week, I ask, can the Guardian staff hang in there? I promise you, it's unbelievable what they're doing right now.
I keep asking the same question every week too. It's like, how much longer is this going to be? Because they just they have been such a good pitching staff, but they are so much thinner from a depth standpoint. Now, I say that, but Gavin Williams is on his way back, who's going to have a big impact on them, right? Like, that's a guy that will help for sure. But like Ben Lively having the season that he has for Cleveland is like, that's, I don't know. Like, I was in Korea a couple of years ago. He bounced around the minor leagues. He made a handful of starts in Cincinnati last year. Like, the fact that he's gotten the results that he has is pretty miraculous. And, you know, it's a major reason why that they've had the lead in the division from jump.
That's Mike Ferrin. He's part of MLB Network, Sirius XM College Sports. Mike, we appreciate it, and hopefully we'll catch up with you later this week here in Omaha.
Yeah.
So good, Mike. I appreciate it. I'm going to come say hi, I promise.
But you better. I'm leaving in 50 hours to head to Omaha.
I got you.
Be prepared. I'll be there Wednesday. So
all right,
you can
buddy.
pick me up at the airport.
You
all right, I'll see you later.